All right. Yeah. Dude. Yeah. I graduated Grand Valley 2015. I got a bachelor's in, I don't know what a BA is, Bachelor of Arts in film, and then another one in broadcasting, production, both productions. Grand Valley had now one program where it combined journalism and production, so it's one thing because it's dumb. I don't like it. I have a training from Nationwide in advanced projection and LED training. Advanced projection is when, say, if this projector was shooting up at an angle because it had to be, but that with the screen, how do you get that image like that? It's also projection mapping. How do you tie multiple projections into itself? How do you take two projectors and stack them and make them shoot the exact same image for backup and brightness? Stuff like that. LED training is what it sounds like. LED training on walls, stuff like that. I started my first job at Wood TV8. I was an intern. I moved to a floor director. I moved to a robotics operator. I moved to a graphic designer, operator, and I thought it was on here. Oh no, yeah, designer and operator, and then I was a director at Wood for 6 years. I moved to Encore EV, which is a local smaller company than this, very small. As a video engineer, designing shows, basically building stuff like this up on Mackinac Island. We do a lot of work, and then some work in Chicago. Corporate Live, I work here now, or I worked here, not anymore. A video engineer and project manager here. Here I really liked being a project manager, and now I work for a company called Blue Water Technologies, and we do live events, and I'm only a project manager now. So I don't do video that much unless I'm freelancing for ESPN, Big Ten, or Griffins. So that's fun. There's jobs out there in video. Where to start? We're going to do projection screens, then we're going to go to format, ratio, resolution. It's question mark because I'm going to ask you what you guys know about them later, and if you guys know it, we're going to skip that part. Cable and converters we're going to talk about. They're changing, so I'll just do a brief synopsis. Cameras, talk about those, and then switchers. That's the format of today. When these are done, you guys get to go home, and so do I. All right. Standard screens. Hey, Frank, will you go over to my laptop, please? Which is over. Nope. You're on my laptop. Go physically to my laptop and click this link that says AV Stumple, which is what that screen is right there. When you guys were asking me about weird formats and stuff like that, I'm going to have a bunch of crap to show you. I love ball mouses. You don't need anything to put them on. Projection screens. This is a company that literally all they do is make screens. So like what you have up right now, we just built. Random weird shapes, drop down, stuff like that. You get into them. This is the very basic types of screens. It's good to know. All right.
Did you end up getting online?
Yeah, I'm online. I swore I knew it. All right, what I want to show you is, now you understand like screens, you can get them custom stretch. You ever seen like stretchy screens, like Intersection, where they have like this weird white, it's not like a standard square or anything like that? Have you guys, the majority of you know what I'm talking about? You're saying no? I'm going to click this link for you. Do you know what I'm talking about though? Like how it can stretch out? All right, we're going to skip it. All right, we're going to do, which one do I want to hit on? Mapping's a cool thing. So you got video. This is a projection mapping like video I just grabbed real quick. I'm pretty sure Christy did most of these. Christy is a projection company. This is Barco. Christy's a brand of projectors, and they do a bunch of shows to show off their stuff. So all of this is, most of it, I mean, you'll be able to see, but this is all projection mapping. So this is a projector in a certain position mapped out to shoot what it's showing. So it's not LEDs, it's not lights, it's projection mapping. People train and do this all over. So that's on a building. That could be on that like random stuff. It's pretty intense when you like. If you want to see some pretty cool shit, just Google video projection. It's pretty cool. I curse. Deal with it. See, that's on a building. The stuff on the building really excites me. It's pretty cool. You can like totally make a solid object come alive. Make it in 3D. And when you get into 3D stuff, that starts getting into like media servers and stuff like that, where you're working in like 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional kind of situation. So it's all about, oh, look at that, perfect. Doing things like that. It's just, I figured that'd be cool to show you guys. You're not getting, does this not have audio?
It's not playing it. I mean, it shows it, but it's not coming out of your speakers.
No worries. All right, let me get out of here. I wanted to do one, because this is the one that I thought was cool when I was training at Nationwide. Nationwide is a rental house. All they do is rentals. But they do some, is this the one? Christie's, yeah, that's the brand. So we're going to hold off on that one. I don't want that one yet. You're moving my mouse. Hold on. Don't move it. Let me get this one open. This is the one I want. think this is the latest. This is Britney Spears, I think. Yeah, all right, so let's get audio for this, so I'll pause this for a second. I think the laptop audio is not on. Anyways, now you can just kind of see what they do. So that's something that literally is a part of this business. It's the bigger side of it. All they do is projection map on this. This is actually, if you look at the behind the scenes, it's all like nationwide cases and stuff like that. But this is a company called Paintscape, and this is all they do, that type of stuff. And so they've got a media server playing through how they want everything to look. It's mapped out like to the inch where everything goes. They're all networked together, stuff like that. So they're making more than one. It's not as simple as like, oh, this is going to shoot on there. It's how do you make, I think, I want to say like 80 something, I don't know, something projectors all play on. That's the media server to play them. So having to tie that all into itself and then put something like that on is pretty sweet. They make it look 3D and stuff like that. It's super cool. Something that excites me about this business. So it's cool when you hear them talk and how they talk about it and all that type of stuff. So we're going to get into projection now. We're going to turn this projector on. This is a Barco 14K. Does anybody know what K means? 1,000. Yeah, 14,000. All right, what is it 14,000 of? Lumens. What's a lumen? Come on, man, more specific. Lumen refers to the brightness of a candle 1 inch away. Yeah, you thought I wasn't going to be that specific, was I? So that's important to know. I'd say in this business, 10 to 14K is like a standard. When you get up to 20 and 30K, they're getting bumped up in size. A 30K is like almost as big as that TV. This is the lens. The lens is unmountable. I put it in earlier. So there's a locking switch inside the lens. This is the big lens. This is a 1.16 to 1.49 or 1.49 lens, which means it's going to throw 1.16 times the width of the screen to 1.49 times the width of the screen. So your lens ratio, to figure out what kind, because you can't just put in the lens into a projector and it works. You've got to know the exact distance, how far away from the projector is to how far away the screen is, because the lens is only going to go so high. So if I've got a show and the downstage truss is 20 feet away and I'm shooting on a 9x16, I need to make sure I have a lens that is not going to be over that lens though. Does that make sense? I didn't map this out because I just got in here, so we're going to see if it shoots. If anything, it's going to overshoot, and that's why I have the TV for it in case it doesn't. If it overshoots, I just move it forward. If it undershoots, I just move it back. But when you're dealing with truss systems and where the actual projector is going to go, sometimes you have no say in where it goes. That's where you get into stuff, into issues. All right, so we're going to power this thing on. It's powered. This takes a whole 20 amp circuit, which means I cannot plug this in with another one on the same amp circuit. A lot of times when we run into stuff like that is when we're going to a venue, we're not bringing all that power that we've been talking about in the other classes. It's like, hey, I need you to plug this into this really crappy community center, and you just see all the circuits are like the out-of-the-wall pockets. I was at a show the other day, we had to do that, and it was all one circuit in an entire gym. And we had to run audio, and I had to run lighting, so we had to bring in a generator. So knowing how much a projector takes is super important for if you're an install guy, if you're a guy that's just in a church being this, that, and the other. It's super important to know what your projector draws and what the temperatures that it can be in. I've been in churches, because I used to do installs, where churches overheated, fried, melted, no more projector, because somebody didn't spec out how far away from a wall it had to be, or if it had to have certain temperatures at all times. Even if the projector is not on, it's still running. The fans are running, the computer's running, all that stuff's running. The lamp's just not on. So you walk in up into a catwalk and your whole side of the projector's melted. You don't want to do that. So I've got a blue light on the back. Usually there's always some kind of light that's a standby light. It's on, it's solid, no error message pops up. I'm going to hit the standby button. That's pretty simple. This is called a cage. All projectors, well, most projectors in our business should come with a cage because they're getting traveled around, they're moving around. These 4 holes here are for stacking, so I took these out when I worked here because we never really stacked. So this can lay now flat rather than it had an input going out, so like a hole where something could sit in, and the bottom had the others, a male to female type of thing. So I took those off, but most of them have that for they can be double stacked, triple stacked, whatever stacked. It's also there to project the projector and rig with the projector. So I'll put a cheese burrow or rigging or ropes right onto the cage, rather than if I just had this body, I can't really put it on anything. flying around showing you that. So that's going to get my feed there, and I'm going to switch it over to, you're going to lose it for a second, Frank, because I'm putting the map up. So this is a grid. This is like a standard 16 by 9 grid. Why do I want a 16 by 9 grid up? Because that's what I'm projecting on. All right, so this is the remote. Now I'm going to go in. First thing I'm going to do is do a lens calibration, because this projector is not a human being and doesn't know what type of lens I just put in. So it could be remembering the account for whatever lens was put in last, which could have been like a 4.0 to 6.9. It needs to basically understand where 0 is and where 100 is as far as the gears on the front of the lens. Does that make sense? So the first thing you do, if you can actually see it, is do that. If you can't see it, then you move it, but I can see it. So, because there'll be times like if it looks like that, I can't see the menu. I don't know what that is, so I gotta move it around. But I'm pretty sure I've done this enough times with this one. I know what I'm doing. There you go. So lens to mid position, there's lens control, all that. This is, I think it's right where I want it. Yeah, right there. No, right, there you go. So then I go, okay. So what usually happens in load-in when Frank's talking about where he's gonna run his cable and all this, that, and the other, the projectionist is rigging this to the truss or having it set up, putting the lens in, firing it up, make sure it's working. I have signal, and then now lens calibrating. So I would do this, then I'd walk to another one, do the next one, then I walk to the other one, do the next one, and then I'd come back, this one's done, do this one, so on and so forth. Because if I've got, how many do we do in the ballroom one time? 12 just in the ballrooms in the Voss, all lined up on a truss. So you just go down, and for then, if I do one here, and then I'm being lazy, and I'll be like, all right, and I'll wait, and I'll wait, and I'll wait, I'll do this one, and I'll go to the next one. Well, I could waste time. It's all about getting up in the air and getting your stuff done. It's all about the in. No, it's not all about the out, but it's all about not holding up anybody else. I got so much hair, I'm surprised this thing's moving around. Let's see. These projectors now can do a 16:10, which is the new ratio. So you want to make sure your projector is also in 16:9 ratio. If I'm doing 16:9, if this is getting, we'll talk about ratios and I versus P, all that later. But if this only wants P, then I have to make sure I'm giving it P. That's a big thing with video is audio is like XLR audio, NL4. It goes one way, whatever. I mean, from what I think. Video, if I'm giving it 720 and wants 1080, it's not going to see it. If I'm giving it I and not P, it's not going to see it. If I'm giving it 2997 frames and it wants 30 frames, it's not going to see it. So you've got to have all your ducks in a row and make sure, but pre-show, whenever, that there's so many chinks in the chain, and signal flow is the hardest thing I found out and heard from other people of video engineering. Like XLR, DMX, it goes both ways, everything like that, but if those switchers aren't giving the source that you're giving it, it's not going to see it. End of discussion. And it could be the cabling, it could be this, but at least you know if you're sending everything across the board I or 1080p or whatever, that's good to go. All right, almost done. Cages also have physical controls on them. Depending on the situation, you want to use those as much as possible. Some situations, if you don't need to, you shouldn't. So, it's done with the toilet whirly thingy. I'm going to go back in the menu, rainbow wheel, as they say in date night. Lens to mid position. I do that. I know other people don't do that because I want to know when this gets done, mid position is going to the center of the lens. When I get done with the mid position, so I'll go through and do the whole thing like I did calibration, I know that that's where it's going to start because I also know with this projector, because I read the manual, it can only give me a 30% up and a 30% down and a 30% over as far as lens shift. So that's another thing in lens shifting, the lens physically moves. Even though it's attached, it can physically move. It's on an axis. The front panel doesn't move, but it's kind of like it can still shift within it. On top of the computer can also move and adjust the input internally. So I'm doing physically to mid position and physically as much tilted up because I already know I have to be tilted up. The ideal position for a projector is obviously center screen, shooting as flat as possible. How many churches have you been into where the projector is hanging so far down it's shooting center of the screen? Okay, that's a bad install because it shouldn't. It's ideal, but you can also go the bottom or the top, which most of the good churches is either farther enough back where it's not an issue, because I can have a lens. I can do a lens from like the street and still get it here because the churches are dark, so you can control the light amount. But top is usually where most installs do because you get that 30 without really messing with the image at all. So there's a little fact. Also, I can go center as much here, but yeah, obviously I'm not going 10 feet up in the air. So let's see what else we got.
It's finding center right now?
It's finding center right now physically with the lens shift. It's always fun when you're doing this and somebody's behind the curtain and somebody like taps it. So it's a pain in the butt. Some of the stuff's ground supported. Any questions so far about what I've talked about? It's pretty self-explanatory. This is just part of the business. I mean, yeah, who wants to put together a screen and you guys touch these at Cornerstone, so you have to do them, but it's, again, the essentials of knowing every little bit about it, about video and where it's going to go. If you don't know where it's going to go or the TV you're talking about, who knows what their TV can take input right now? Is it an ITV? Is it PTV? Or is it? Exactly. So you want to know that because if I'm going on site with this TV and I don't work here and I don't know what this TV, and this is an old TV that only does I, but all my stuff does P.
What's IMP?
Interlace and progressive. We'll talk about that later. But I'm just saying, knowing consistently across the board, if you don't know where your video is going to end, you might as well not even have a start if you don't know. So that's center position. That's center position there. Stop moving. So I'm going to say it'll probably work. So we're going to go back out. So this remote is weird. The one thing I don't like about it, it doesn't give me like a zoom and focus button. It's just enter. I hate that. Christie's remotes are twice the size of this. And they work from like 60 to 70 feet away. It's amazing, especially when you're on the ground and the truss is in the air 40 feet and stuff like that. All right, so we're going to go up. Lens shift, so it's shift vertical, shift horizontal. Pretty simple. I'm going to mess with this real quick. So I can't make the lens do, yeah, I understand, well, this tilting which way. I can't make this lens shift like left and right on a two plane. So that's when the physical control of the projector's off level. So I'm using the top of the frame. That's why I said when I brought it up, it didn't matter how much on level it was because I can tilt this projector and make it level. And as a video person, you never want to get into that what is true level because then we're talking about a lot of stuff. The curvature of the earth, if there is one, the screen's not level because it's a warped screen. Well, how do you level a warped screen? How do you level a curved screen? Exactly. So the whole like being level thing. All right, so that's good enough. Now I'm going to go. So that just shopped out to 16 by 10. See how it's wider? It's going to shoot back. So watch the edges. That's 9 by 16. That's what I'm giving it. And because I'm not giving it a 10 or 16:10, it's going to jump out and just give me grid. So it goes up top. So that's also like I've walked in a situation with somebody zoning in 16 by 10 and they're like, why isn't it working? I'm like, well, it's a 9 by 16 screen. That's why it's not working. So I'm going to zoom in, see if I can get my zoom. If not, I'll just shift it forward. I got some leeway here. This is a bread and butter every day. Almost every show a live events company does is either televisions or projection. If you know how to project a screen in, you can be hired literally just to show up for a couple hours, do this, and you leave. So, I mean, like all the stuff you've been learning the last 3 weeks, like whether you care or not, it's money.
Let me speak up there. There's a position with the local IA called head projectionist. Whenever there's projectors on site, the IA...
Whenever there's video, period.
Video, yep, there has to be a head projectionist. And generally, the head projectionist has to know how to do this.
Generally speaking.
Should know how to do it.
Generally speaking. The IA is a different beast. Yeah, but so that video I showed you when they did that, there were, I think, 23 head projectionists on it, 15 power people, literally like head electricians, just to worry about the power, and I don't even know how many techs, but it was a production. There was like one of the levels in the video, and they showed there was like a huge table just full of food for the crew. But like this is something that I didn't think, because I came from TV, didn't think I'd be in this at all, that this was a thing. Like when I saw shows, I was just like, oh, the show went on. We didn't think about who was all behind it. And something like you can come in. If I could do this, that'd be dope. I would just show up for a couple hours and get paid an insane amount of money and leave. Because once this is zoned in, I'm not going to zone in, it's not going to go. It's too low, so if I really wanted to, I'd drop the projector or screen down, but it's too much of an axis from where that's at right now. But I would just show up on site, do this. Once it's zoned in, the truss isn't moving, the rig's not supposed to move, like all that stuff's done, I walk away. And I don't have to be there for the out, all that type of stuff. Just like a camera person. They don't even show up for any of the load in, they don't even load out, they just run the camera for show. Stuff, and that's like a couple $100, like from $350 to like $550 a day. So there you can make a living, not as an IA hand. You could though, you can make a better living as a freelancer if you start learning the trade while you're in school and you graduate. And then you have a trade. I taught an intern of mine at Alma College this when I worked at the other company, and she worked 94 to 95% of the gigs for this company when I worked here. And now I've left, and now she's still working a ton of the companies. She learned while she was in school this stuff. Like literally what I'm teaching you right now, I taught her. The same thing, same speech, and now she's doing it as a freelancer and making a living out of it. So.
Hey, Charlie, so you said you're not going to be able to zone this in?
Yeah, I could drop the screen down if we really wanted to, but I'd rather have them closer, and I'll just use this.
So can you finish what you would be doing? You'd be putting those little white squares?
Yeah, I'll just stop. So I'll talk about all the keystone stuff. So say this was flat. We're going to talk about what keystone is. So what keystone is, I'm trying to think of that movie. Keystone is, so if this is a flat image, it's flat. It's flat with the lens and stuff like that. Keystoning is when a corner, when your entire image is beveled out each way. So if I were to do this with the screen, see how the image stretches? I'm vertically keystoned. If I were to do this, see how that screen fits now? That's taking, I would do that inside the projector and tilt the physical image inside the brain of the projector, because also there's times where the screen is not supposed to lay flat. Sometimes it's angled up. Well, I can't, if the screen's like this and the crowd's here, I can't put a projector in the middle of the crowd. You still got to put the projector up top. So you keystone the actual image to fit. And so that's when we go into warp. All projectors have, well, they don't have warp. It's called different things. X Energy X is the barcode brand of Christie Twist, and Christie Twist is awesome. That's what they used up there, which I want to talk audio because they had a lot of talk about it. Christie Twitch is like a matrix of a media server where I can literally, like on my laptop, plug this in Cat 5 and drag it to where I want and drag the corners and say go, and it'll automatically go. It's like a computer software of warping it in, rather than what this is going to be. I'm going to go to keystone adjust and say I'm just going to just adjust it really fast.
Oh, you leave that back, don't you?
Yeah, it's better if you leave that up so I can see the edges, but. And I hate my face. So you're going to see the image slowly adjust vertically. And then, let's see, I'll wait for you to put that back up. It's easy with the grid, because what you do when you do that is it also manipulates the image. So real projectionists, try not to keystone. Nope. Try not to keystone as much as, what happened? PowerPoint. There you go. See how the lines are like, there's like whited out? It doesn't look true. Do you see how it's messed up? All right, I'll put it back and you see how it changes. That's what I want. So it can move the image, but it's basically filtering it, which you're not getting your true image of what you put out, which to the client or to the video, whatever you're shooting, is not going to look like that. It's going to look like whatever, it kind of has to alter it. It warps it a little bit. It fucks with it. And you don't want to do that as much as possible, but you get in a situation where you have to mess with it a little bit, and you got to deal with it. So all right, now you see how solid the lines are, all the grid lines? Watch how they change when I vertically shift this. And the best way to learn is to adjust by a lot. Now it's processing it. See how I just changed it? It vertically shifted the bottom of that to be on a 3D scale farther away if my screen was leaned up. Does that make sense to you guys? So that's something that like is super important when you're going and you're seeing a screen not flat. If this was ground supported, and that, so if I measure, so what I do is I'll get them back here, and I'll literally have a distro, like a laser, and say that's 25.2, and I'll be like, oh, that's 25.4. I gotta move it. Because that's the distance of, if those little, oh, it's like 2 inches. Well, that's 2 inches 20 feet away, 40 feet away, 30 feet away. That ends up being like 1.5 feet. That ends up really being a big deal. So you've got to kind of understand all of that, because if you look at an image and you're like, well, I'm level across the top, but like that image is off a little bit, but that one's not. Well, because that corner might be farther away than the other corner. Like knowing that and visualizing not a projection screen as a flat image, it's more of a, it's a cone. It's a triangle cone. You guys know what those are? You know what I'm talking about? Like when you get into, you know what I'm talking about? More of that, because there's that flat surface, this flat surface, that flat surface, that flat surface, and that flat surface. And you've got to make those all match for you to project properly. That make sense? All right. Frank, go back to my PowerPoint and see where I'm at. I think we understand projection. Projection's super fun. It's super easy. And if you guys want to, I mean, to some people, I just got this from the get-go. I don't understand how people are stupid with it. But I'll give you guys my number, email you guys, I'll teach you anything you need to know. But that's super easy, because there's so many people that are really bad at it. There's people that like plug this in, they'll put like bricks under this thing, they'll shoot it up. So if I were to put something under here and shoot it up, my natural image is going to be keystone. And so then they would reverse keystone it and just make the image look like poop. And they're fine with it. And I'm like, well, I hate you. So, let's see what else we got. All right, formats, pretty easy. Interlace, progressive. Interlace doesn't really exist anymore in new TVs, but if I was going to get an old TV, I think this is old. Is this I don't know. I don't think I had a problem with it. They don't make interlace anymore. But interlace used to be when you ever see, I don't know how old are you guys?
We've seen the TVs that have.
You've seen the TVs? All right, that's interlaced. And this is progressive. Progressive is the whole image all at once. This is interlaced. It's how video was ran. It was all the component. It was all the stuff that was like basically the coding and the matrix stuff that I don't need to worry about, and you guys definitely don't have to worry about, because now it's all just standard. It's faster. It's I'm not an engineer as far as that. But I versus P is interlaced. If you see PFS, it is not progressive. It's frames per second. I don't know why it's P. It just is. I don't know. So there will be sometimes 1080 PFPS. So it's progressive frames per second, stuff like that. But if it's I, you'll see a little I. If it's P, you'll see a big P. But that's basically it. So what would happen, I'll teach you it, but I'm not going to stay a lot on it. I just didn't understand. I wanted you guys to know IOP, because when you guys ask IOP, you graduate, you should know what IOP is. You probably won't have to deal with IOP at all, but, oh, here's an example. I had to deal with it just now. I'll talk about it later. This box did not take I. I was feeding it I, or P. It did not take P. I had to swap it out to a smarter box, because this box didn't want to listen to what it was going to, so it wasn't giving my TV. It's an older box, sometimes you deal with that. It's an older TV, sometimes you deal with that. So again, knowing what products you're going to have is also important with what you're working with.
So you're going to find this I and P after the number 1080, like for instance?
Yeah, you can say it'd be 720p, 1080p, 1080i, stuff like that. It's literally just, I mean, if it's standard enough. Now they're starting to get rid of the I, because there's no more I, but you'll see it sometimes. Like I can program all these switchers to do I, because it was only like 4 years ago they got rid of I, but they're starting to get rid of it. And basically I means interlace, which means so if you were thinking 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 would go first on the screen, then 2 would go on the screen, and there was that delay that you would see. Well, it wasn't just like, I always thought it was just like the image rolling in the TV, because I was an idiot, but it's just being projected delayed. But it wasn't like delayed together like you would think. It was like, you'd like see half, but it was like the pieces, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's because the I was getting delayed. So 1 would be, and then 2, and then 1, then 2, and then 1. Now it's just all 1, non-interlace. That's that. Frame rates. Who knows what frame rates are? Who's run a video camera? Not a Canon, a video camera. Put your hand down. That is not a video camera. Who did? You? Video cameras, video cameras? Frame rates. Sweet. Whoever doesn't do it, so there's 24 frames per second, which means within 1 second, 24 images are captured and put onto a reel, if that makes sense. And that reel shows itself in 1 second. 60 frames per second is 60 frames captured to be played back at 1 second. It's pretty fast. It's getting faster, but it's pretty fast. So that's good to know because, again, if that wanted 60p or 60 frames, and I'm shooting out 2349, whatever film is, that's not going to want to listen to it. That's when you got to get a converter in line and stuff like that. If I make a video, which happens all the time, film people don't like to do 2997 or 5994. Oh, and there's a bunch of different frames in between that. I think it's the next slide. But film does a certain format because old films, reels, used to only be able to do a certain amount of, so they've like stuck to that standard. And if you guys are film people, sorry, film and broadcast hate each other. Most of broadcasting gear is 2995 or 5994. So if somebody gives me a 2495 frame video, it's going to lag because it's missing technically a couple frames. So it's going to like make up those frames by putting in blank spots like every 12 frames or whatever it wants to. So that's when you get into, have you seen drone footage? And it's like, it looks like poop, like the drone's like freaking out or something. That's because that was recorded by somebody with a Canon who shot it in the wrong frame rate per second. It happens all the time, and then I got to edit it and make it look good because it needs to be 2997. So if you are working in a church and making a video, make sure whoever is literally filming it films it in the right frame rate. Because like I said, if you don't know where your video is going, you can't have a start. So the start would be that camera. The source of what you're filming should match. Because when I go in and edit it, I'm also editing it. So I'm putting blank spots in appropriately, but I'm altering your design. So anytime you got to alter something, obviously you're going to lose quality.
I got a question.
Yeah, you do.
So when you say you edit something, say someone gives you a 24 frame per second video, but you're working in 30, is there software or conversion
Premiere
equipment?
Pro is what I use. Premiere Pro, not Final Cut Pro anymore. What's the other one? Who knows the other editing one? There's one more. I don't know. I use Adobe Premiere. They're amazing. You just ingest it. It'll be like, do you want to change the frame rate to your sequence settings? I mean, I'm not going to get into editing with them. But you would export it the correct way, and an actual software, not a playback device, will appropriately fill in the spots where it needs to. You'll look at it and say, it still looks a little crappy, but it'll look better when it did. That happened to me at Wolverine, where I got this super expensive footage of Merrill's shoes, and somebody recorded it on some wacky frame rate, and even when I adjusted it, it was still messed up, and they didn't have the raw content. And it was a thing of like, what frame rate was it in? And he told me, I don't remember what it was, but he told me, I was like, I don't even know what he was thinking and what he was shooting at. I don't know if he was European or because different countries shoot in different formats and codecs and PAL versus NTSC. That's a whole different other thing. But it happens when you get it. You just ingest it into a editing software, and you're done. That's why I made corporate invest in editing software, because I kept getting content that was in the wrong format and handing it back to them. And a lot of people just don't understand it. And so that's frame rate. Make sense? So what's cool about this, slow-mos. So who has seen like National Geographic, Animal Channel and stuff, like the cool stuff they've been doing, like Blue Planet and stuff, when it's super slow-mo? Well, they're not going to record in 24 frames because they're only going to get 24 frames. They're going to record in like 500 frames per second, but they're going to play it back in 60 frames. Like they do some crazy stuff with the new RED cameras. Anybody know what a RED is? Those are some sick cameras. They can go so high up in frame rate, but the playback is normal. That's how they don't record in slow-mo. They record in super high frame rate, but they play it back in normal. So if I shoot right now and do the 60 frames per second and play it back at 29, and it's going to seem a little short. Not super, because it's not that much, but when you're recording 5,000 frames per second, you play it back at 60, that's when you're seeing that butterfly, stuff like that. That's when it gets super cool. So if you get a chance at school, mess with frame rates and cameras and playback, it's super cool. Or if I would record in 24 frames per second and then play it back in something super higher, you look like Usain Bolt, because it's super fast. So it's not as clean because then you get the little choppy, but when it's that fast anyway, you're not really going to see it. So frame rate's a really cool thing to play with, but if you're in the industry and stuff like this, you want to make sure you're understanding and everybody's on the same page with frame rate. So what I tell clients is 1080i or 1080p, 2997 or 5994, have a nice day, and they say okay. So when they go to export, they see those settings and they do stuff like that. It's mainly a problem when you have a content house come in, or say you're in a church and you've got a touring thing. I don't know if churches do that. Do churches ever bring in people? They bring in people. Well, they're playing it on your device. They're going to want to know what you have as far as what do you output, what switcher do you use, blah, blah, blah. You've got to know that. If you're going to run that building, you've got to know all that little stuff. You can't just be like, oh, I don't know, it just happens, which happens when I walk into buildings when I used to do install. What's this, what's that? And they have no idea. They don't even know what lumen the projector is, stuff like that. Video resolutions. This is like, I found this when I was like a sophomore, and I had it like in my room, I have it in my office, I got it everywhere. But especially now it's changing with the 4K and 16:9 and all this other stuff, or the 17:9. So basically this is like, it needs to be updated, but this is a grid that shows you different resolutions if you don't know. Some of these you should like know by heart, like I know 720, I know 1080, I know stuff like that, but I don't know what 480 times 320 is, stuff like that. But understanding where videos come from, as far as resolution of 320 by 200 to 4026 by 2160, 4K, just understanding that is nice. So you have your resolution and your ratio. Your ratio is the one that you see the little colon in. So 5443, 16:9, that's your ratio. And then all of these are resolutions. If I were to take all the resolution numbers, so blue, if I were to take this and divide it by 16 and then divide that one by 9, it's going to be 1. If I was going to divide that by 16, then 1, it's going to be 1. You understand that? It's going to be 1 to 1 across the board, 16 by 9. That's how it's going to work. It's going to cancel each other out. That's resolution. So knowing your ratio, resolution, big thing. So I like when people give me 1080 or 1920 by 1080 on a 4:3 screen. And that's when you get the bars, and there's nothing you can do about it. What do I got next? Questions? Any questions about resolution, I versus P, frame rates, anything like that? Frank does.
Resolution. It didn't feel like you really defined it. That's how many lines?
Resolution is pixels. 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels.
Okay.
So I didn't understand that. So pixels, you guys know what pixels are? All right. So there's 1 pixel right here, and 1,080 to go that way, and 1,920 to go that way. Literally pixels. So if I was going to pixel map something out, I can take 1 pixel out and stuff like that. So pixels is your resolution. If I built an LED wall, it was literally standard 19 by 20 pixels on an LED wall. So I went through that LED wall and I brought up pixels and took like the bottom 15 pixels out of the image and worked from there. So pixels is also related to resolution, but actually physical pixels is when you make an LED wall. And physical pixels in an LED wall can be anything because you can build an LED wall to do anything. So you can build an LED wall, go straight up, not going to match any resolution and stuff like that. That's when you get into media servers and the higher end stuff where you build content for that, because I can't put a PowerPoint that's 16 by 9 on a wall that's 20 by 5 feet. It's not going to work. That's when you get into pixel mapping and stuff like that of an LED wall. That's up there. So that's what resolution means.
So what happens if you put a lower pixel ratio into a TV like this? Is it just going to skip every other pixel, or is it going to make?
Well, that's when you're coming into knowing what you're feeding it to knowing what you're giving it.
But if I'm sending this TV a 1080, and then I turn around and send it a 720, that's a pixel ratio, right? Mm-hmm. What's that TV going to do different for me?
That TV is still going to read 16 by ratio, just it's going to spread out where it's going to put filler, just like frame rate, it's going to put filler pixels in because 720 is also 16:9. So ratios can still match. You're just losing quality in pixel strength. Make sense?
Okay.
All right. Any more, Frank?
That's the rest of mine.
Y'all better ask questions. Let's see what I got next. I know he doesn't know video that well. Oh, I gotta get this off because this is cool. Oh, that one's bigger. Sweet. Cabling. I'm gonna get you guys here. Who knows what a DVI cable is? Oh, I knew you would. I don't know why I knew you would. You do? All right. So a DVI cable is digital video input. It's used for like a laptop and stuff like that. HDMI, you guys know. Oh wait, I got a laser pointer, right? Oh, it's the first time I ever used one of these. Mini display port, it's Mac world. You got display port, which is PC gamer world. You got HDMI cables, mini VGA cables, VGA cables. This is really old S-Video. Like if you got a dusty camera at Cornerstone, it's probably got S-Video out. So is Component. How old is it? Oh, it could be older. Like, I know Grand Valley's got a ton of those still. Component, Composite. The only difference between Component and Composite is this extra one. And with Component was, if you get into RGB green, stuff like that, you can interchange the blue one and the green one, I believe, because all that is vertical up and horizontal. So as long as you do the same on the other end, it still works. You don't have to deal with any of that in the industry anymore. This thing just died. Look at a laser. This is the SDI cable. Not working. Poop. SDI cable is a standard cable because it's shielded. It's strong. It interlocks just like XLR with audio.
SDI? It's
almost the same as coax cable. Coax cable is like your cable coming out of your house for your internet. That's a coax cable. Most cameras have a back of an HDMI or BNC SDI. BNC is the type of connector, not the cable. A BNC cable does not mean SDI cable, and an SDI cable definitely means a BNC cable because it's the only way they make that connect. This is fiber. Fiber is the new Triax. Triax was super old, or not super old, but it's the older. It was made years ago to convert power, video, comm, return signal, a bunch of stuff within one cable, and now fiber is doing this. This is a SMPTE fiber. I can't remember what it was, but it's a standard video cable fiber package. So there's an end, male, female. This is going to go to the source. This is going to go to your projector, your switcher, where the back of the fiber unit. It's got two glass fiber. Who knows what fiber is? Like physically what it is. You guys know it's glass? It's bendable glass. Fiber, and I only know this because I used to install fiber. Fiber is tiny, 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 thin glass that beams of light are shot down to give signal. So this can go, oh man, I want to be right, like 4 kilometers, or 2 kilometers without power. Like, means I would put something on the end and you make it go another 2 kilometers. SDI is 300 feet. What's XLR?
Oh, XLR can go
300
probably, wow, I've had some stuff go up to 500.
500? Yeah. So this goes kilometers, which is like 3-point-something miles. So this goes really, really far. I know right now there's fiber going up from here to Traverse City. It's connected to like, I don't know how many spots, but this can go really, really far. Here we have 2 100 meters and a 160 meter fiber strand. It's faster, it's stronger, it's more durable. It can go really, really far. The downside of it, it's very fragile. So if nobody puts those caps back on and that glass gets dirty, the little tiny shreds of glass, I'm talking smaller than a needle. I've had fiber go into my arm before. It's not good and it sucks. I used to do installation for a fiber company. Smaller than that. Smaller than like microfiber. Is that what you're thinking of? Like the insulation fiber? No. Smaller than that. Smaller than a hypodermic needle. It will go in you without noticing. But you're safe with this cable because it's in there. But if that gets dirty, it's glass. It's supposed to emit light. If I've got dust all over the end of my glass, I'm not going to project and get the right signal down it. So making sure those are clean is the #1 priority with that, because those heads cost about $4,000 to replace. I can't just cut it like I can do BNC and SDI and re-crimp it. You've got to go get that redone because it's fusing glass to metal and all this other stuff. It's a lot better, faster, stronger, but if you don't upkeep it, it can be your worst enemy. All right? You should make sure you're shut, but rubby knuckle. But when it gets inside, when it's inside those tubes, you're screwed. Just put the caps on. Just put the caps on, put the caps on, put the caps on. Usually if you're in a church and you have an install, you probably leave it anyway, or they'll run what they're called, they won't run that fiber, they'll run other fiber. But that's cables. Let's see what else is. HDMI, you guys know you can't fix an HDMI cord once it's broke. sweet. You can do SDI, which is why industries use SDI, because you can recrimp it and do whatever you need to. VGA, you could jimmy rig and fix. It's not fun. You like wire nut the stuff together.
Does everyone know VGA? That's
Old school VGA
probably
is
most
probably on the
common.
back of your laptop or your monitor on your campus.
Charlie, one question. Is Triax something of the past now too?
Yeah, I told him that replaced Triax because Triax still works. It still does HD, but it's bulkier, it's heavier. It doesn't go as far. I know a lot of companies still use Triax. Where I work, still use Triax. But fiber is the faster, better quality, and you can't do 4K with Triax. So it's getting to the point where they're slowly, if somebody's buying Triax now, they're wrong. Like they need to be ahead of the game because Triax is slowly starting to go away as far as production, as far as live events, as far as even install, because this is stronger, shielded more. Like if you have, if I put a lot of power, so like all that distro power, and lay it on top of SDI, it'll start losing signal because of the whole ohmage and everything like that. Fiber is glass, don't touch it, leave it. You could throw it wherever you want, put it wherever you want on top of it. So it's just becoming a more safer, industry standard, stronger, it's cleaner, lighter. Like we had Triax on those spools up there and it used a quarter of it's not a big cable, it's not a big, bulky, heavy, nasty cable. So there's that. So I think I got cameras next, but I'll see what I got. Nope, converters, sweet. I'll come over and talk to the converters. You want to get the camera? You can probably do that.
Or do you want to do the?
I didn't want to hook it up. I was like, I hate that thing. All right. So I'll talk about up converting and down converting. Up converting is when you're taking something that's 720 and I need to make it 1080. Down converting is something when I'm taking a 1080 and I'm making a 720. So I'll give you a real life example for you guys. I'm trying to relate this to stuff you do. I'm in a church and I need a budget. I got to budget something. I can update my cameras, but I can't update my switcher. Well, if I update my camera to 1080, but my switcher needs to be 720, well, that means I have to buy a down converter. Does that make sense? Because the camera won't feed into the switcher. Huh?
And what's the point of buying new cameras?
Because you only get a budget for so much per year, man. You can't walk into church and be like, I need all this stuff. So they're going to go get out of this building. You're fired. So you got to pick what you update, but you also have to keep in mind if you're going to update cameras, okay, and then you tell them, hey, we're going to have updated cameras, but we're going to have to down convert them to 720 till next year and then buy a switcher next year, or maybe 2 years, or maybe whatever your budget is, you got it. So that's why you have up and down converters. If I go into a venue and I'm using an in-house system, but I've only got 1080 switchers, I've got to bring a down converter with me. So up and down converters are like a Swiss Army knife in this industry. This is a cross converter, HDMI or SDI, which means I can plug HDMI into here, whatever format, and it'll go HDMI out or it'll go SDI out. It's basically looking at it like something coming here, something coming here. I got HDMI going in, or I have SDI going in. I've got SDI coming out, or I've got HDMI coming out. So it goes, that's where the cross converting goes on. Does that make sense? Everybody make sense? So I can basically plug this in. It's got a little monitor, or I can plug in a micro USB to my laptop and download the software, tell it what to do on the computer. I hate that all it gives you is up and down, back and menu, so that's kind of a pain. So you plug your laptop in, do it real quick, or get like a Surface or some tiny thing. It can do that. It also does patterns and overlays. So if I've got a logo or something that's random, I don't know why there's overlay on this, but if I need to overlay something, like key something on top of something, or brand or something like that, I can do it through here alone, or I use it for pattern generator, which is what we just saw up there when I was doing that. It's a grid, color bars, straight color, stuff like that. It can all be generated from here. What I'd use this for, and what I mainly bought it for, was I would, say you're doing a rig, so we'll do a rig situation. My village isn't set up, so all my video stuff's not set up, so I can't feed it anything, because I just physically can't for some reason, the way everything's set up. But I need to run my lines. My projectors are hot, and I ran my SDI, and it's about to go in the air. Well, what if it goes in the air and I get a bad SDI cable? You're going to be that guy that makes them bring the rig down because you didn't check your cables? Well, I can just plug this in, give it test patterns, plug one in, see it on the projector, unplug it, plug the other one in, see it on, so you're testing your signal. For you, again, don't hold up the production. So I do this while I'm on the ground. I'll do this while the projectors literally just came out of the case and got plugged in. Just like that, being more preemptive with video is the best way to go. Because also SDI had the little ends, the negative part of them. Sometimes they get banged, and when you pull in cables and stuff like that, always checking cable, always checking cable, always checking cable. So that's why I love it up and down converts. I've never really used it for that, but it has overlay. So rather than setting up that huge thing, I can just plug in SDI, and call it a day. All right, we'll talk about this real quick because it's right here and I might forget. Who knows what a solid state drive is? You do, you do. All right. A solid state drive is something that does not have any spinning parts in this. This is like a microchip. It's good because there's no warming up, so it's faster. It doesn't have to start spinning. You ever plug a hard drive in and it takes forever to like pop up on your desktop? That's because it's spinning. It has to warm up, start going. It's basically like a little bike that's got to start going. They also break. When you have something to spin, you have moving parts, the wheel bearings go down, stuff like that. It's like a bike. It's spinning all the time when you have plugged in. This is not. These last longer, they're stronger, stuff like that. So when I'm playing videos and very, very, very important clients for like GM, Wolverine Worldwide, Walmart, bigger clients, most hard drives on laptops spin, so we would play the really, really good content on here. It's as good as the one in there. It's not better because we know it's not going to spin. It's going to be the fastest delivery. There's not going to be any spinning rate. So these are good. They're expensive. They're like 3 times as expensive. The write speed is crazy. Yeah, depends on which one you get for sure. So Blackmagic. No, the thing's not up there. Blackmagic Design is a video / now audio / production company. They make products. They don't do shows. This is a SDI to HDMI converter. TVs do not have SDI unless they're like $8,000. That has an HDMI. So how do I get SDI signal into that television? It's through SDI to HDMI converter. Pretty simple. That's what this does. It can also split the audio. So if I'm embedding audio to this via SDI, there's a analog or AES and EBU. Honestly, don't know what EBU is. I'm a video guy. Don't even know about the audio side. So audio would plug into this if they needed to say I need to send this to a speaker on a stick, and this is a TV and a speaker on a stick out in the hallway. I just send an SDI line and then plug the audio out of it because I don't want the audio to follow the TV. I have it go to a speaker. So that's what that does. Fiber. SDI if I want to convert from fiber. There's also, it's not that type of fiber we just talked about because the ends are different. It's just regular different. I can't remember the name of this type of fiber. But there's 2 little holes of the fiber that goes back and forth. It's tiny. We used this when we had to go like 1,000 feet away. Obviously, SDI doesn't travel that long. So instead of putting like a power supply every 300 feet, we just ran a fiber down. So they have, I'll get to that in a second. I'll show you websites later. Audio to SDI. I need to embed audio that Frank is giving me to get onto my SDI line because my switcher doesn't do it. He put the audio in, put the video in, sends it out embedded. Embedded is when it's joined together. So my SDI signal, even though I said it's video, it also can carry audio. That's what this does. These two are the same things. It's a lot smaller. These can run off of USBs in the back of the TV. So if I just have a nice clean rig, instead of having 2 cables come down, I would just power this and tape this to the back of the TV. This is very common for podcasters and YouTubers and stuff that have an SDI camera, but they need to get their HDMI or stuff like that. Like they want to convert it to their good camera into like a regular recorder that doesn't have SDI in, so you go the other way. And it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. I like these because they're tiny and USB powered, which is awesome. These are the same things. This is an SDI to HDMI converter. This is an SDI to HDMI converter. This costs $150. This costs $1,000. They do the exact same thing. This is heavy. Pass it around. That is a more durable brand. Blackmagic makes stuff that lives in your mom's basement, and you don't want to take it out that much. It's very flimsy. It's not meant to, like if you drop that, I'd be mad, but I wouldn't be like, probably broken. I don't want to drop these. Why they're all in cases. They work, but that is by a company that's made this switcher. This is by a company that's made this switcher. They're just a bigger, I trust that company more than I trust these, but cost effectiveness, 2 of those cost as much as me buying like 15, 20 of these. So there's that. Another good company that makes the good stuff is Aja, or AJA. This is a ROI. I can't remember what ROI means right now. I might have had it in PowerPoint. It's going to go DVI to HDMI to SDI. What this also does is the USB on the side of it, I can plug into a laptop and change, so it's also an up and down converter. What happens when we use these is if I'm feeding that switcher, which only is SDI, I need some HDMI signals to go SDI to get into the switcher. That's what these are for. They're, again, more durable, more reliable. A locking power supply is a huge deal. The power supply locks in. That one also has a locking power supply. This one just has a hole and a little tiny light on the end. So stuff like that, which makes it more industry durable versus just make it work, call it a day. Again, this is, I don't know how much this is, but this is expensive. Let's see what else I got. I got a Tear Deck. Who knows anything about streaming? Who's been to YouTube? Who knows what YouTube is? What's YouTube, right? Who knows what H.264 is? All right. This is an H.264 web encoder. This plugs into a Cat5. You give me house internet anywhere. It's got a locking power supply. It's got an HDMI or SDI in. It's got a headphone jack for me to monitor it. And the front of this, when it's powered up, gives me a bunch of settings. And the easiest thing this does is to get my video on the internet. As long as this thing has internet, I can get it on the internet. We use this for streaming of a show a couple times. They want to do a live stream. I'm going to pass this one around because it's pretty durable. It's made by Tear Deck. Who knows what Tear Deck is? They've like owned the globe. And do you know what a bolt is? Is that why you know?
No, I've used Tear Deck transmitters in my church.
Oh, okay, transmitters. Yeah, the bolt. So they made their claim to fame. Their logo is literally a bird for wireless transmitters. They have a 300 to 600, 1200, 3200, and I think they're coming out with another one. That 100 and that length is how far they can send signal. So 1200 goes 1200 feet, 600 goes 600 feet, 300 goes 300 feet. They made their claim to fame in that, and now they're doing a little bit of other stuff. I love this device. It's strong, it's sturdy, it's quick setup. It uses a web interface. All I have to do is like also log on to my laptop, set it up. I'll see it. It'll give me a menu from there, the same menu that's in here. I hit stream. It says ready, stream, it goes. It also has a recording device on the front. So just feel how heavy that is. This gets hot enough to cook an egg. So that's also something. They designed it has a quarter 20 to go on top of a camera. So if I had like a camera, and there's also holes here for antennas, but we didn't get the antenna to have Wi-Fi. So this could have been like on a camera by itself, streaming out wherever I want with no landline, just using like Verizon Wireless or something like that. But it's just a more durable, solid. I'm not even worried about that dropping. What else we got? All right, this is a DA. This is used all the time. Distribution amplifier. Okay, so like I said, 300 feet the max for SDI. Well, if I get the end to SDI, what the hell do I do? Well, I'm going to put it through one of these. It's going to go in, it's powered, and it's going to repower that signal out to go farther. It's got 1 in and 4 out. So there's some that have 1 in and 6 out, 1 in and 12 out. All these types of things up. It's basically if I need to go, if you're in a church and you need to send a signal to two downstage monitors or monitors that are off stage, well, I'm not going to run 2 signals all the way there. You'd want one of these under the stage and then split it off under the stage and just feed the TV. Same thing with projectors. If you had a bunch of projectors else places, huddle them together and feed these appropriately how you go through. Same thing. It's by Ross, the one that I showed around earlier. Locking power supply. Shows up green for signal. So if it's red, it's not getting signal. These are sweet. These don't break either. I think one of them is broken after 7 years, something like that. They actually have real power supplies also. So everything but Blackmagic has IECs with a power and nothing else. Why am I on the screen? So this is something else. It's if I lose this, I can just get another one of these. These are the one that's a little bit more tricky.
I don't know what IEC cables are.
I don't know how it is. IEC, I don't know what IEC stands for, but it's a power cable. It's what powers powered speakers and what powers some cameras. Boxes like that. It's like a universal power supply. I don't know what IEC actually stands for.
Most likely know one from the back of a standard computer, like a tower computer.
What's it stand for?
I don't know what it stands for. No, that's not my water. He doesn't know. Frank's guessing. All right. Anybody have any questions about converting? We got cables. We did converting. Here, Frank, I'm going to lose that real quick. think that was the input. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna click that link now that I'm connected to the internet. No, it's just a link to show how many freaking converters there is. So I'm gonna do that. Oh, I got my mouse. Where'd my mouse go? So this is B&H. Who's been bought anything from B&H? Everybody shops at B&H. I don't know. I don't know what the B&H stands for, but it's basically audio, video, lighting, everything. Sometimes Macs, if you guys want Macs for cheap.
They're closed on all the biblical holidays.
Yeah, it's a Jewish-run company. They're off for all of that.
They don't even answer the phone.
They sell Macs, dude. You want to talk after class? They sell Macs real used and refurbished, man. Woo! You get some Macs pretty cheap. No. So we've got just in the video section. It's in New York. Their warehouse is awesome. If you guys like serious about video, audio, lighting, and you want to see a super. Have you been there?
No, but my friend has.
Dude, they have just the Canon section as big as this warehouse. They have every single Canon lens, everything. That's just Canon. It's huge in New York. Anyway, so there's 1,414 different types of when I typed in video converter. Just to wrap your head around that. You can probably convert everything to everything. I use B&H because if you were going to go to Amazon and search converters, you're going to run into a Russian guy that's just made and soldered some stuff together and it doesn't even work. Because you don't know if it works or not. You're just going to buy like when USB 3 came out, there was like all these like USB 3 adapters that didn't even work, but you bought it. It's a trusted website, there's reviews, stuff like that. I just want to show you guys the graph, how big the converter game is and cabling and just how big the world, the Black Magic, just how big the industry is as far as what you can turn stuff into. So when you get into a rut, I just go there and search it, and if it pops up with any result, then I research it. So it's just cool. Any questions? How do we get it back? Come on now. Any questions on converters or cables? I know it's lame, guys. All right, we're at the second. Any questions? You guys can take a bathroom break.